Hi, everyone. Hi. Welcome back. Welcome back to another stream at the asylum. Dr. Funny Girl here. I know it's been a while, and guess what? I still haven't fixed the time on my laptop, so the time is still off. When I set this stream up last night, I said to myself, I got to get my son to help me fix it because I'm an idiot and I can't figure out how to adjust the time on my laptop. And of course, he ran out the door just as I was coming in, so I didn't get an opportunity to do that. But at any rate, so here I am again, a few minutes early, but that's okay. I'll try and get some of the stuff, kind of the housekeeping stuff out of the way first. So thank you again for joining me tonight. If you have the opportunity to join me, thank you if you're watching on the replay. Again, I know it's been a while. I think it's been about a month since my last stream. I've had a lot going on. I think I mentioned to you guys a couple streams ago that this year had started off a little rough for me. I had some family members that were extremely ill, and that took up a lot of my time. And then dealing with my own health issues, having issues with my knee. So I'm still working on that. Still going to physio twice a week. I have seen a doctor. I'm waiting to get an MRI. Hopefully that's not going to be too much longer. So to see what exactly is going on, the consensus still does seem to be that it is a meniscus tear in my knee, though. So just working on keeping it from getting worse. It is causing a lot of frustration, though, because it's impacting my daily life big time. It's pretty painful. And if I'm going to be doing anything for, walking even for more than 10 minutes, I have to wear a brace, and the brace is pretty big and bulky, and it's just not a lot of fun, but it is what it is. So I'm just dealing with it best I can. So, so where I was going with all this, I was hoping that I was going to be able to stream a little bit more regularly, but back in June, I had another family member that ended up being in the hospital for some pretty serious health issues. So that took up, again, quite a bit of my time. And then I unfortunately lost a family member to cancer. So, so that's where I've kind of had going on the last month. And while I haven't had much time to stream, and last week I needed a break, so I took some time off and did some things with my family that was here visiting from the East Coast, and just had some downtime, and it was a lot of fun and really needed. So I'm back tonight to stream. I wasn't planning on talking about Chantal. I really wanted to get into some of the other stuff I had previously talked about streaming about, but Chantal has gone and done the craziest thing. She's gone to Syria. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we're also going to talk about what types of decision-making processes might have driven her to make this decision to go to Syria. So looking at it through a psychological lens. So if you're in the chat, pop in, say hello, and we'll get started here. So what I wanted to talk about, so tonight we were going to talk about psychopathologies and what they are and what they mean to someone in the world of psychology, and how they affect people and their real lives. So let me get into one of my other tabs here. So the definition of psychopathology. Psychopathology refers to the study of mental disorders in terms of their causes, development, course, classification, and treatments. So psychopathology is used to describe a wide array of mental health conditions including but not limited to depression, anxiety disorders, bipolar disorders, schizophrenia, and various personality disorders. Understanding and studying psychopathology is vital in diagnosing and treating these mental health disorders. All right. Sorry. Okay, so when we're talking about psychopathology, so we're talking about, again, let me just find my notes here. Sorry, guys. Let me go back up to the page here. So psychopathology is studying mental health conditions and the problems that come with those mental health conditions. So we want to so if you're in looking through the lens of psychology, therapy, psychiatry, you want to understand how people think, feel, and act. And this is especially important for understanding these patterns that are outside the norm of things. So really learning to understand, to diagnose, and differentiate between abnormal behaviors. Because that's really what the study of all this is, right? Like all these behaviors are abnormal or outside the norm. Okay. So, different signs of psychopathology include, I'm flipping here between tabs. Different signs of psychopathology include changes in eating habits, changes in mood, excessive worry, anxiety, or fear, extreme feelings of distress, the inability to concentrate, irritability or anger, low energy or feelings of fatigue, sleep disruptions, thoughts of self-harms or the S word, trouble coping with daily life, and withdrawal from activities and friends. Now, if you look at those lists of symptoms, everyone goes through periods where they feel all of these things, right? But it's how you cope with them and whether these feelings lead you to abnormal behavior. So, guys, I just ate right before, like I was literally shoveling down my food right before I jumped on screen because I had a physiotherapy appointment right before this live was scheduled. So I raced home and then quickly made myself dinner. So to excuse me if I'm sounding a little bit out of breath here because I've been rushing around trying to get some things done. Okay, different causes of psychopathology. So there's not one, so no single cause for psychopathology. There are a number of factors that increase the risk of mental illness, including biological factors, including your genes and brain chemistry. We know science has shown us that brain chemistry plays a huge factor in mental health conditions. Chronic medical conditions, family members with mental illness, feelings of isolation, lack of social support, substance or alcohol abuse, and traumatic or stressful experiences. Okay. So, psychology is very much an evolutionary science where things are always changing in it, right? Well, science itself, right, is evolutionary. Everything is there, there's the new theories are always being tested and proven, or sometimes theories that have been proven are now being disproven, right? That's what science is. So there has been some disagreement historically about what constitutes a mental illness. and how mental illnesses should be diagnosed. Right now, in North America, we are guided by the DSM-5 for diagnosing mental illnesses. But over the years, we've seen some mental illnesses come and go from the DSM versions, depending on what they are. So different types of treatments for psychopathology include therapy, definitely CBT, dialectical, and psychodynamic therapy. So these focus on understanding and changing your patterns of thoughts, feelings, and most of all, changing behaviors. Medications. So quite often, medications will be used in conjunction with therapy. And most medical professionals will suggest that you do therapy in combination with taking medications. Lifestyle changes, and then solid support systems within your community are huge in changing behaviors. So, hello, we got some people in the chat. Hello, thanks for joining. Hi, busy little bee, you made it. Yes. Hi, Lex. Good to see you, Lex. I tried to tag you on Twitter, but I couldn't remember your name, so I apologize for not when I posted about my live. Can you guys hear me okay too? I've been talking for like 15 minutes, so hopefully you guys can hear me okay as well. So I won't review what I went over at the beginning of my stream. I just went over some housekeeping stuff, but so you guys can go back and review if you want. But we're just going over some stuff about what's been going on, about why I haven't been able to stream for the past month. But I'm here tonight, and I just started going over the definitions of psychopathology and things like that, and we're going to talk about how some of these behaviors have affected, how I think they've affected Chantal anyways, and the decisions she's made. Oh, you guys can hear me. I sound great. Oh, thank you. Awesome. Thank you very much. So a couple of things that I've noticed with the streams that Chantal has released since she's been in Kuwait. I mean, everyone, like, this is, not Kuwait, Syria. This decision to go to Syria, right? I think shocked everybody, myself included, but at the same time, also not shocking to see her do something, frankly, so reckless and irresponsible. I don't know if you guys feel the same way I do, but I'm not sure any of us in girl world were expecting her to pop up in Syria, but also at the same time, we're not shocked by it, right? Because we've seen her do some pretty outrageous and outlandish things. So to recap, to anyone who doesn't follow girl world intensely, Chantal is another YouTube creator, Foodie Beauty, that is kind of part of a community that I've been a part of now for the last few years. And she's had some pretty crazy things happen in her life over the past month, right? She was in Kuwait, did something that was allegedly against the law, decided to flee to avoid facing any accountability for that decision, ended up in Canada, back in Canada, which I think was a good decision. And I actually think her staying offline for a couple of weeks was a good decision too. But then when she immediately went back online, she ended up getting doxxed immediately from her new apartment. She made another stupid, reckless, impulsive decision by adopting a cat or taking in a cat that she immediately had to try and get rid of. She came out again as a proven liar about the cat because she lied to she had to try and rehome this cat because she decided to leave the apartment that she just rented. So she had to try to rehome this cat, which itself was a very anger-inducing decision to adopt a cat without having first established herself back in Canada. She was only in the apartment for a week or a few days when she decided to take that cat in. And then, within 24 hours of having the cat, decided she didn't want the cat anymore. Yeah, I know, Lex. Yeah, poor Smokey. That chunk of a cat was adorable. He was adorable. Yeah, and I had a cat named Smokey too. So that, kind of hit me. And, uh, Chantal's decision around animals is up there with her worst decision-making skills, right? Like, it's clear that she uses animals to make herself feel better, not because she has love or she wants to care for other animals. And that's unfortunate. But she's like that with people too. So, nobody should be shocked by anything Chantal does with animals right now. But, at any rate, she says this cat was rehomed. I really hope it was. And rehomed to a good home that it was going to be safe in. But she doesn't think, she has no clear decision-making skills, right? She can't see beyond the next literally 5 minutes, I think, of what the consequences of her actions are going to be. And she's proven that time and time again. So she was in Canada. She said she was leaving that apartment because she got doxxed. She got rid of Smokey. She was going to, she went on with this narrative that she was going to maybe road trip for a bit, or she was going to live out of the car that she was renting. Then, she kind of spoke about, her parents were going, or her family were going, to a family camping spot for Canada Day. And then she disappears, and 48 hours later, she pops up on live stream in Syria. And she wasn't even in Syria for a full day. Like, it sounded like she had only been there for a couple of hours when she decided to go live. So, shocking indeed to a lot of people. And then her narrative right from the beginning is that Syria is a safe place, and that it's, now that the war is over, it's a much, much safer place to be. And I'm sure it is to a certain extent. And then there also her whole narrative that the Western media portrays it to be an awful place. And again, there's some truth to that as well, because we all know what the media is like, right? However, this is a place that has been under conflict for a very long time, not just the past 10 to 12 years. Like, prior to Assad, his father, I believe, or his uncle, I can't remember, was also in charge and under a dictatorship regime. Like, it has been under conflict for many, many decades. And there was a reason why Canada and other countries around the world took in so many Syrian refugees, because of the war, the civil war that was happening there, and so many innocent people were being killed or hurt. And My sister, she's a teacher in the East Coast, and when Canada brought in a large amount of Syrian refugees several years ago, she ended up with a lot of them in her classes, and they barely spoke any English. So she had to, there were supports in place to help them try and learn English, but so she had to help, obviously, these students try and navigate the educational system in a completely different country than what they've been in. Totally different culture. And she had some students that were telling her horrific stories of what they lived through while they were there. And then, for them to try and get out of that conflict into a safe place, like one of the students she had, and I'll never forget this, I'll never forget her telling me this. One of her students was a young boy, and I think she was teaching about 12, 13-year-olds at the time, who told her that his brother was literally killed in front of him by a stray bullet as they were trying to flee the country. So can you imagine the trauma of a child seeing that, of a parent seeing that, and then you're living that day after day until you can get out and be in a safe place, in a safe country. And so, when Chantal shows up there and says, "Oh, it's completely safe now." No, it's not completely safe now. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic about it, because I do think that it is probably a little bit safer now than it was. But there is still much very war torn. There are still a lot of rebels that are loyal to the Assad regime. When she talks about the men standing on the corner, like the military checkpoints, like I don't think she grasps the seriousness of the situation that she's in. And she's chosen to go into that situation. Chosen. People literally, even now, like she said in her live stream yesterday when she went to the immigration office in Damascus, literally she said hundreds of people there now still trying to get out of that country, hoping maybe now it will be a little bit easier now that the Assad regime is over. So, but she's chosen to go into that situation. So, like, what drives somebody, right? Knowing how dangerous it is to go into a situation like that. So, if we're looking at this through, I'm going to look at it through, if someone, if let's say somebody like Chantal's mom came to me for therapy and was like, I don't understand why my daughter or my son or whoever makes these decisions, So, looking at it through that lens, I would, talk about, the type of behaviors that this person exhibits. And, the type of behaviors that we've seen her exhibit are extreme selfishness. She's self-centered. Again, thinking only of herself, right? She does not seem to care about how her actions will affect someone else. And with this trip to Syria, we've seen that she doesn't care about how it's affected Salah, because apparently, like, he made it very clear on the live streams that we've heard him in the background that he told her no, not to come. And she basically said, I'm coming, and gave him 48 hours notice on top of that, that she was going to be there. So she forces herself onto other people. And uh, she made the comment that I'm a very willful person. That's not willfulness. She's not a willful person, because if she was a willful person, she wouldn't have the struggles with her weight that she does. If she was a willful person, she wouldn't when she's back in Canada, she wouldn't spend uh days on end on THC, completely out of it. She has no willpower. She's not a willful person. She's a manipulative person. So she manipulates people to get what she wants. That's not willfulness. They're completely different. So Lex made the comment, I ask myself that all the time. Smee must be worried. Yeah, like I would be worried sick. Like, you know, I just, again, like she does not think about how her actions affect other people. And she'll say, well, I'm an adult, I can do what I want. I'm 41 years old, I can do what I want. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you can do what you want. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be held accountable, and that doesn't mean that what you're doing is right. And it doesn't mean that your actions are not hurting other people in your life. So, you know, so 41 years old, and she can do what her want, but she doesn't do it with any responsibility. So that's crazy. 48 hours for him to get sorted and set up for a wife in a war-torn country is bananas, right, Lex? Yeah. Like, I just like, and if you truly care about somebody, why would you want to put that on them, right? Like, why, it's not like she was trying to escape a war torn country and was like, I only have 48 hours to get out of here. I only have this time period, I have to get out. No, she was she was in the safest countries in the world, in Canada, like, and she basically said, and I actually wonder if he even knew she was coming before she left. Like, I wonder if she was like, I'm on a plane on my way to Turkey. I'll be there in 2 days. Like, I wonder, like, if she literally put him in that position where he had no choice. He had to figure something out, you know. So, and there's definitely some, I don't want to say sketchy, but there's some odd things going on. I don't know if you guys have been watching Milk Tea's reactions, or Sansa Cook's reactions to the videos, to Chantal's live streams, but they both of them have made a couple of good points. Like, the first, like, Sansa Cook said, why would Salah kind of rent another place for them to go to? Like, why wouldn't he just put her up in a hotel in Damascus, where it's probably one of the safest areas to be in, and she would have, you know, AC and good access to food and running water and stuff better, and or why not take her to the family home that he's apparently fixing up, right? Like, it's very strange that he had to rent a separate place for them to go to until the family home is fixed up. Because if they're without electrical several hours a day, and they're low on water, and food is not is not easily accessible, why spend money on a different place? Why not just do, rough it, as Chantal puts it, roughing it in from his family home? So I thought that's kind of weird um that he had to rent a completely separate place, um So I think he was probably staying with family there, and she didn't want to stay with the family there and demanded that he rent uh, a place for them to go to. And apparently, I guess she complained about the fridge not working, which again, like, it's comments like that, like complaining about the fridge not working, that, just blows my mind. Like, you literally, I don't want to say smuggled herself, because it does sound like she crossed at a land border. It originally sounded like she smuggled herself into Syria, but it sounds like she crossed into a land at a land border. But like, oh, just, yeah, crazy decision. Um, uh, so, and then she's looking at this almost like, I hate to say, I almost, one of the, like, she's treating this like it's a fat camp that she's gone to. Oh, I'm going to lose so much weight here because there's no fast food, and, there's no running water, and there's no power. And I'm like, it just blows my mind. Like, she just doesn't have, like, her privilege just shows over and over and over again. So Lex, yes, apparently, so she did comment in her last stream that yes, her passport was stamped at a land border. But I think in one of the first lives, with the way she described it, it sounded like it was maybe not the case. But yeah, she did say yesterday that her passport was stamped. So, and that was another thing. She commented in the live yesterday that she made the comment about, what happens if I run out of pages on my passport? I'm like, are you kidding me? That makes your passport is invalid when it runs out of places for countries to stamp your visa into. Like, she just did this without thinking again. Because she can't stay there in Syria forever, right? Like, she's got to be there on some sort of visa. So again, so the speculation that has come out since her last, so yesterday in her live, she said they had to go to Damascus to the immigration office to try and extend her visa. So from what I understand from what Milk Tea said today in her video, is that after 15 days, she has to extend her visa. So that's probably why they made the trip to the immigration office yesterday, was to try and extend her visa. But she was complaining about that. She was complaining about all the people, the hundreds of people at the immigration office, complaining that she had to walk up 3 flights of stairs and that it was hot, and then, like, complaining about, sorry, excuse me, Chantal moment, as Gigi says, how he says, complaining about how hot it was, and then they were at the wrong office, and she, like, you could see, like, she was completely irritated by it. You could see it by her body language. She was, like, rolling her eyes, and I'm like, these people are trying to get out of this country to save their lives so they can try to have the best life possible somewhere else. And you are rolling your eyes because you had to climb up 3 flights of stairs and it was hot. Like, she just doesn't get it. So again, back to talking about, again, I go off on tangents talking about Chantal. Back to her pathology, right? Okay, like, this is, she has always manipulated situations and people to get what she wants. And I 100% believe that this is what she did, this with Salah, and he is not happy with it, because, he said he didn't want her to come. And then again, yesterday in that live stream, she made the comment that Salah has been complaining more than her. And I'm like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. I would be complaining more too if I were him. I'm like, you basically force yourself on him. You force him to go rent this other place that's now costing him more money. He's now has to look after you. He has to run out and get you your ice for the cooler and your food and your fruit, your little slushies he's been getting you. And like, he's now has to look after you. Not to mention the fact the reason he's even in Syria to begin with is because of her and because of what she did in Kuwait. So and it sounded like he was pretty much forced to leave, and he sounds like he's being forced to give up his Kuwaiti residency. So he's not going to be able to go back. So she has taken away any kind of freedom that he had. And then to say, well, I'm a willful person, I just needed to be with him. Like, oh. So again, this is when I go back and say, I go back to my previous live stream about Chantal. When people say, well, Chantal's not hurting anyone but herself. Oh, I'm sorry, but I completely disagree with that. She is hurting a lot of people. And now she is, in fact, taking away resources from other people in a country that have no choice but to be there. So it is extremely self-absorbing behavior. And it truly does border on narcissism, because she doesn't care about how her actions affect other people. Because if she did, she never would have gone. So I'm just going to go back to, because I wanted to talk about I read a good case study about, kind of reminded me of Chantal. So I'm just going to see if I can find it here. Because we know Chantal's behaviors are all deviant behaviors, right? Like every single one of them. Like even the fact, again, yesterday, she's like, oh, I can't find her toothbrush. Like, what? How can you not find your toothbrush? Like, I'd be willing to bet that she hasn't brushed her teeth since she got there. Even though she said she only lost her toothbrush one day ago. So, because she would complain that when she was in the apartment in Canada, she said she hadn't bought toothpaste. Like, these are behaviors that you like, basic hygiene that you learn as a child. You brush your teeth. Like, as soon as you start getting teeth, you start brushing them. It's it's crazy. Crazy. Of course, I can't find it. I knew I should. I was going to copy and paste the case study into a Google Doc, and I should have done it. Oh, so of course I'm always running by the seat of my pants here. But it was basically a triad model, and it was talking about how when these three types of behaviors come together, they form this triad. And it was not the psychopathy. It was not the psychopath triad. It was not that. But it just reminded me of exactly of who Chantal, what I see when I observe her behaviors. Let me just jump back here. So, oh, hi, Stephanie. Hi. Oh, we've got some new people coming. Let me go back to the chat and say hi. Hi, Mimi Red. Hi. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for stopping by. What is Lex saying? Oh, you guys are... Rudy is growling, if you can hear him. I don't know what he's growling at, but something. I kind of disagree with the last part. The country has limited resources, but she is not taking away with her money. She's actually stimulating the economy. 700 yes. Oh, that, okay, yeah. In that sense, I do agree with you. Yes. Yeah, I do agree with that. Lex, she did is stimulating the economy in that way. She's definitely keep all the local Restaurants in business, that's for sure. She does not care about oral or personal hygiene. No, she does not. Strange, isn't it? I brush mine sometimes 4 times a day. Yeah, like I just can't imagine. Fourth after I eat popcorn. Strange, Stephanie's same. The fourth after I eat popcorn. Yeah, like I just can't. I'm one of those people. I'm sitting at my desk, like I have an office, so no one sees me, but I'm constantly flossing my teeth at work constantly. Yes, everyone, like the stream. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hi, Stephanie. Lex bullied you to come. Well, I'm glad you're here, Steph. I think he's probably one of my first stream you've been to. Welcome. I'm Dr. Funny Girl. I call this place the asylum. I'm a fourth year psychology student doing my undergrad. So I try to talk about the things I'm learning in school and how they apply to stuff I see on the internet. Chantal being, I do talk about Chantal, but not just her. I try to move on to other things. But anyways, do you guys have any questions about psychopathology or like, I'm just trying. I'm kicking myself for not being able to find that case study now, guys, because it just totally, I knew I should have done it. I'm like, I'll find it. I'll be able to find it tomorrow. Of course I can't now. So, but, it was, and the other thing, other things Chantal does too. Like her behavior is just so reckless. And that is like, to me, that's the best way I can describe it, is that it's reckless. And she has no care or concern about how those behaviors affect other people in her life. So, and that just frustrates me. As someone in this field, that just frustrates me so much because, it's one thing to, and I've talked about this before, it's one thing to have mental illnesses. It's one thing to never address them and deal with them. And for some people, they don't, people that are delusional and have real psychosis, they don't realize they have it, right? So Chantal has a list of diagnoses she could have. Oh yeah, like I would honestly, Stephanie, I would love the opportunity to sit and diagnose Chantal. I really would. I would. I obviously can't do that without speaking to her and running the proper assessments, but I would love it. So, is her behavior something that she can unlearn with therapy? Yeah, there are a lot of behaviors that she can unlearn with her therapy. Her impulsiveness for sure can be unlearned with her therapy. And again, I've talked about some of my own experiences with this as well. I'm someone also who was very impulsive, and that led me to make some very bad decisions in my life. And that the only way I changed that was addressing it in therapy and addressing what the root cause of where that developing that behavior came from. So yes, it can be changed. It can be changed. Her binge eating, that can all be changed with therapy. Learning to be unselfish. Yes, I'll say yes, it can be changed. But again, that can only come when you see the direct result of your actions have on other people. So, and I'm not sure she would ever get, again, because without actually officially diagnosing her, the behaviors she displays can all be changed. And I say that again because when we talk about, I know people call Chantal sociopathic, and she's a psycho. People think she's a psychopath, and some of those, she definitely does some things that people would describe as being sociopathic characteristics. I've described some of her characteristics as being sociopathic because they are. Lots of people can exhibit sociopathic behaviors but lead healthy lives. So unless she was actually genuinely diagnosed as a sociopath, which again is not a real diagnosis, it's a description, or a psychopath, um, with those traits, like, you know, other behaviors can be changed. Um, like when it comes down to it, she's a spoiled brat. She really is. That's what all she is. She's a spoiled brat who's used to getting her way, and when she doesn't get her way, she manipulates people till she does get her way. So, okay, I'm sure her family has put some walls up to keep themselves sane. Yeah, and I'm sure they have too, because at some point you have to, right? Like, I think we've all kind of speculated that her mom doesn't let her stream from her house anymore after all the in real life stuff that happened with Music Biz Marty. Um, so when you're dealing with somebody like Chantal, you do, and you're dealing with, again, it's almost like when you're dealing with someone who is an addict, you have to put those walls up to protect yourself, right? Because then they just drag you down with you, which we're seeing happening in real time with Salah, right? He is being completely dragged down uh, by Chantal. Like, look where his life has gone in the 3 years he met Chantal, right? Like, you know, yeah, no, exactly. So that's what I'm talking about, Stephanie, right? I was really shocked Salah stayed with her after getting him kicked out of a whole ass country. Right. So again, like, she has, she dragged, when she was in the villa era with Pete's, she completely dragged him down. Now, Pete's wasn't living a massive, glamorous life before that, but he had his own place. He had a steady job. His mental health seemed to be, what we saw of him, okay. But like, they move in together and she completely brings him down. He quit his job. His mental health was in the toilet to the point where people were seriously concerned about his safety. And she didn't care. She took all his money, basically, ruined his credit. And where is he now? He's living in a bedroom with renting a room from an elderly couple. Like, it's, you know he's not working, but again, I understand that's his own choice. He decided to quit his job after getting a bit of a inheritance, which fine, that's his life, his choice. But and now with Salah, so again, in Kuwait before she showed up, okay, he was living in kind of a one room apartment. Okay, maybe not the greatest, but he had a job, he had a car. Now, for again a short period there, her YouTube money gave him a better life. And I think the promise of Canada was always there, or if not the promise of Canada, the big YouTube money, I think, was what drew him in initially, right? Because she was making, $20,000, $30,000, whatever she was making, $20,000 a month in YouTube money. So of course that drew him in, right? But then she decided that, she was going to stay in Kuwait, and he was hardly around most of the time. And then now, because of her impulsiveness with that kitten, he had to leave Kuwait, he in Syria, and like, he's left trying to rebuild this life in a country that he's Syrian, but Syria wasn't his home. Like, it's insane. Like, and that's another thing too, when I hear Chantal say, well, Syria is his home. This is his home. Well, Okay, yes, it's where his family is from, and yes, he's Syrian only because Kuwait doesn't give birthright citizenship, but for all intents and purposes, he's Kuwaiti. Like, he was born and raised in Kuwait, a very rich country where, again, not saying, he obviously was not in the upper class or, was very rich, but, he appears to come from a good family. So it's, you know, she is like a tornado. She just comes in and rips apart everything and then leaves people to pick up the pieces. So, and that's very much what narcissists do, right? Like, they come into people's lives, they get what they want out of it, and then they take off and leave a path of destruction. So, right. Yeah, exactly, Lex. He wasn't struggling in a country where there are gunshots over dinner. Right. So that's the other, I didn't even address that. So while they were at some place, there was somebody that was shot and killed not very far from their vehicle, and then they can hear gunshots outside of their little apartment that they're in, and then him talking about the missiles flying overhead, like, as if it's like a party. I'm like, oh my god, like, do you guys realize the situation that you're in? And that's the other thing too. So Chantal said that she doesn't even know where she is in Syria. She doesn't know the town or village that they're in. Now, my first initial thought was, well, only Chantal would be that stupid. But Milk Tea made a good point that she thinks that Foodie is not just saying she knows. She's saying she doesn't know where she is to kind of, so people don't dox her. So, or maybe try to locate the area. But she is definitely very willfully ignorant, Stephanie. Yes, absolutely she is. She chooses to ignore things, especially negative things that will have an extreme negative impact on her or her life. Yes. She lives in delusion that way, for sure. So that was the other thing I was thinking too. I'm like, so here she is. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, she really doesn't know where she is. Google Maps is unreliable because you can't always get an internet signal, and who knows, again, how accurate it is. But she doesn't know where she is, other than she's an hour and a half outside of Damascus. What happens to her? She doesn't speak the language. So what happens to her if something happens to Salah? Which, let's face it, anything could, right? Like, he's the one apparently leaving all the time and doing all these things. Anything could happen to him. Like, how does she get out of there, right? She doesn't speak the language. Like, could she even hail a cab or a taxi or anything to try and get her across to another border? Like, so, like, she should have some sort of exit plan available if something were to happen where she has to get out immediately. If she, and she should send it to her mom and her sister or whoever she has here in Canada and say, if you don't hear from me in, say, 48 hour, like, if it, 48 hours goes by or whatever, 72 hours goes by and you don't hear from me, then this is where I'm supposed to be. And this is my exit plan to get out of this country if I have to get out quickly. Check in at these places, check in at this hotel, at this airport, or whatever, right? Like, she should have, and some sort of exit plan, or give it to the Canadian embassy or whatever, so they can try and locate me. So, like, I just, like, she has all the money there buying stuff with her, right? What if he gets kidnapped and they demand ransom from her? Right, exactly. Like, this is all stuff that could, in the Western world, as she calls it, might seem a little far fetched, but it's all very stuff that could happen to her where she is. Who does she call? She has no clue where she is, right? This is what I'm saying. Like, she should have some sort of exit plan and give it to somebody here in Canada, that if worse comes to worse, they could at least contact the Canadian government or their local MP and say, listen, my daughter is here in Syria. She's with her husband. I'm using air quotes again. She's with her husband. This is where her last known location is. Like, what can you do to help? Like, she's done none of that. She should have joined a mosque, met women, and learned. Right. Yeah, exactly, Stephanie. Yeah. Like, if you want to become part of this part of a culture that you've married into, you want to learn about it, right? You want to learn, especially if you're going to be living in countries that don't speak the language. You need to learn the language so you can understand. So for any type of emergency situation, you can at least try and get yourself out of it. And now she's literally put herself in the most dangerous situation she could. It just boggles, it boggles my mind that, again, that she's not thinking about any of the potentials that could happen. So Chantal, I don't know, you're probably not going to watch my channel with my 59 subscribers or 60 subscribers, but if you do happen to come across this stream because you're Googling your name or whatever, get together a rescue plan and send it to your mom so she has it, so you can get out of the country. So, like, and I know, again, as a Canadian, we don't, our culture is different from the US in fact, when it comes to gun culture, right? Our culture is very different. So we don't have easy accessibility to firearms in Canada, which I'm fine with. But if I were her in Syria, I would be learning how to use a firearm, and I would have one to protect myself, or to at least try to give myself some sort of chance to protect myself. So, no embassy. Yeah, so there's no embassy in Kuwait, in Syria. So if she has to get out, she has to try and get across a border to where there is a Canadian embassy, which, Jordan, Beirut would be the closest ones, I'm assuming. And those are not going to be like 5-minute drives over the border. She's going to have to find someone that's going to be able to take her into another country. So, and a Syrian stamp really cuts off her travels. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure it's going to raise some questions, right? It's going to. That's just the nature of the world these days. The Syrian government is now being run by former Al-Qaeda operatives. It's just the nature of the world. Like, yeah, what is a white woman from Canada doing? Going to Kuwait, getting married within 3 days of being in Kuwait, living there on and on, or traveling in and out of Kuwait, which is all her passport shows, right? It's her traveling in and out of Kuwait every 90 days, and then back to Canada for 3 weeks, and then into Syria. Like, that's going to raise questions, right? Should it? Maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't, but it's going to. That's just a reality. And any chance of Salah had of coming to Canada, it was very slim to begin with. Very slim. Or is zero now. Zero. He had a place in Kuwait, and he gave that up to go to Syria. There's no way in hell he's ever coming to Canada. I don't even think he'll ever even get a visitor's visa now to come, even for a visit, because he's too much of a risk of staying. Stephanie, I would be going out Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid style. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I will. I would be too. And like I said, I have no experience with guns. I don't care to have any experience with guns. But if I was there, I would be doing what I had to try so I could protect myself. I was thinking they will try refugee. Yeah, I don't think that he will. It won't. I don't think it will work now, Stephanie, for a couple of reasons. One, uh, the Canadian government has decreased the amount of people they're bringing in right now, and the Syrian single male, is like very low on the list for status, especially because he had residency in Kuwait, right? Like he was in a safe country, relatively speaking, and he gave that up. So, and because there is no current ongoing conflict at the moment in Syria, I'm not sure like what anybody's would be able to claim refugee status, first of all, but he wouldn't be able to right now. And even like I said, for a visitor's visa, I think it will be very difficult for him right now. For a couple of again, same type of reasons, but I think I mentioned on my last stream when I talked about Chantal, because people, like I said, people are always talking about how easy it is to get into Canada, and it's not that easy. But there was a gentleman here who had like a family man whose parents. I'm trying to think if he was actually Syrian or was he from Turkey? I can't remember now, but I read a news article. His parents have been waiting to get approved for a visitor visa to come to Canada. And it's been over a year and a half. It's been almost 600 days at that point, and they still hadn't been approved to come even on a visitor's visa because they were from a Middle Eastern country. I cannot remember for the life of me what that country was, but they were still being denied a visitor's visa. So I don't think there's any chance that he would get a visitor's visa, even because the risk of him overstaying the visa and not leaving is too high. So, and again, if they look at his history, Kuwaiti born, lived his entire life in Kuwait, decides to go back to Syria now, it could very much look like he's turning into a rebel. So it could very much look like that. So I think the security risk is too high. So, all right. Stephanie never fired one yet. So, all righty. Yeah, so. But at any rate, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Not sure you can be a real you can be a rebel with this laugh, right, Lex? Oh my God. Oh, it's like nails on a chalkboard. Nails on a chalkboard. Yeah. So, but who knows, right? Like, who knows? I know Milk Tea said she believes there is some sketchy stuff going on, and that's why he fled so quickly out of Kuwait. So there very well could be. I think that he went to Syria thinking he was going to lay low for a while and then go back to Kuwait. But then Foodie made it sound like his Kuwait residency was revoked. So again, we all know how much of a reliable narrative she is. She lies, so who knows? But it'll eventually all come out because it always does, right? What's done in the dark always comes out to the light. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you for joining me again tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you to the new visitors in chat. I hope you'll come back. I am I am not going to be able to stream again for a few more days. But I will be back next week. And so next week, guys, I was thinking about two things. We can talk about some sovereign citizen stuff, or if you're interested in going down that rabbit hole, or we can talk about what I had mentioned in my previous stream. If you hadn't watched, go back and watch my previous stream about this new phenomenon of husbands drugging their wives and letting them be assaulted. There was apparently a pretty big case in Canada that I want to delve into. So put it down in the comments below if which topic I'm going to cover both. It's just a matter of which one I do first or second. So Mimi, I am so fascinated with sovereign citizens. Oh my God. I'm so fascinated. Yeah, like down a deep rabbit hole with those. So, and actually, while I was away last week, I actually ended up talking to some police officers about sovereign citizens. So maybe we'll tackle sovereign citizens next stream then, because I had a really interesting conversation about sovereign citizens in Canada, anyways, with some police officers I talked to last week. So, okay, so that's it. We'll talk about sovereign citizens next stream then. Today is Thursday. I'm just trying to think. I'm thinking it will probably be Tuesday or Wednesday before I can stream again. I've got some stuff going on this weekend, and then with my physio, but I definitely am not going to be gone for a month. I will be back within a week. All right. So again, thank you for stopping by the asylum. Please like and share, like, comment, subscribe, all those things that creators are supposed to ask you to do. The stream, and stay safe out there. Enjoy. I hope wherever you guys are, it's beautiful weather. Enjoy. We're going into middle July already here. So let's make the best of it before summer is over. Summer's way too short. All right, guys, thank you again so much. I will see you all again soon. Good night.